Welcome to Life Stories. Today, we're bringing you a heartwarming tale of unexpected connections and the power of dreams. Follow Emily, a young woman with a passion for creating a space where people can connect. And Ryan, a successful entrepreneur who believes in her from the very beginning. From a simple luggage mix-up at the airport to the grand opening of a cafe that changes both their lives. This story is about love, independence, and learning that sometimes, it's okay to accept help along the way. So sit back, relax, and let's begin the story today. Don't forget to subscribe for more. The terminal at the bustling airport was alive with the usual hum of activity. Travelers rushed through the crowds, their footsteps echoing against the polished floor as the distant crackle of intercom announcements blended with the chatter of impatient voices. A sense of urgency filled the air, but among the noise and the haste, Emily felt a rare moment of calm wash over her. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of new experiences, unfamiliar cities, and tight budgets. But at last, her European adventure was over. She was finally heading home to New York, eager to start the next chapter of her life. Tomorrow, she would begin a new job, an exciting opportunity she'd worked hard to land. Everything needed to be perfect. It had to be. She'd stretched every dollar to make her dream trip to Europe a reality. But now she was back, ready to set roots and make the most of the opportunities ahead. As the baggage carousel whirred to life, spitting out suitcase after suitcase, Emily adjusted the strap on her worn backpack, eyes scanning the conveyor belt for her black hard-shell suitcase. It wasn't hard to spot, she'd recognized it instantly. It had taken countless flights, been dragged through airports and cities across Europe, and even endured a fair share of rough handling from baggage claim attendants. Yet, it had served her well. With a relieved sigh, she stepped forward and grabbed the first black suitcase that came into view, its hard-shell surface gleaming in the overhead lights. Without a second thought, she wheeled it away, her mind already racing to the next steps, getting through security, grabbing a taxi, and finally being able to curl up in her own bed. Meanwhile, just a few feet away, Ryan Hayes stood by the conveyor belt, his hands casually tucked into his pockets. He looked out of place in the sea of weary travelers, his tailored suit and immaculate appearance setting him apart. Ryan was used to staying under the radar. Despite the fact that he was far from ordinary, the young CEO of Hayes Capital, a financial empire worth billions, he had just returned from a long business trip abroad. Now, he was eager to unwind and get back to his routine. After all, there was always something new on the horizon. Another deal to be made. Another investment to secure. But as he scanned the belt for his luggage, something caught his attention. A black suitcase, identical to his, was gliding past on the conveyor. Ryan's eyes narrowed slightly. His assistant had always suggested he buy a more distinguishable bag, but he had never taken the advice seriously. Now, he regretted it. His hand reached out, and he lifted the suitcase off the belt, immediately feeling that something was off. It wasn't as heavy as he expected. A frown creased his brow as he looked down at the luggage tag hanging from the handle. Emily Carter, it read. Ryan's mind raced for a moment, trying to piece together the strange mix-up. Who was Emily Carter, and why on earth was her suitcase at the airport when his was clearly missing? Curiosity piqued, Ryan stepped aside and unzipped the suitcase. Inside, instead of the designer suits and business documents he'd packed, there were neatly folded casual clothes, a few souvenirs, and a well-worn travel journal with colorful stickers from various cities across Europe. He flipped open the journal, noticing handwritten notes about local cuisine and sketches of landmarks. There was even a bucket list item scrawled on one page. See the Eiffel Tower at sunset. Ryan couldn't help but smile, amused. Whoever Emily Carter was, she seemed to have a real sense of adventure. She was nothing like the high-strung, business-focused people he usually encountered. Pulling out his phone, he quickly dialed the number listed on the luggage tag. As Emily stepped outside the airport, feeling the cool breeze against her face, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She frowned when she saw the unfamiliar number, but she answered anyway. her voice cautious. Hello? Hi, came a deep, calm voice on the other end. I think we have a little mix-up here. You took my suitcase. Emily's heart stopped. She glanced down at the suitcase she had just taken. Her stomach dropped. Oh no, she whispered under her breath. Are you serious? Dead serious. The voice on the other end replied with a touch of amusement. I'm holding a suitcase with your name on it right now. Emily groaned inwardly, mentally kicking herself for being in such a rush. I'm so sorry. I was just in such a hurry. They look exactly the same. She paused. I swear I'm not a thief. Leo chuckled, clearly understanding her panic. No harm done. Listen, how about we meet somewhere to exchange them? I assume you'd prefer to have your own things back? Absolutely, Emily said quickly, relief flooding her chest. Where are you? I'm still at the airport. He replied. Want to meet at the cafe in Terminal B? Emily glanced at her watch. Give me 10 minutes. I'll be there. Ryan smiled to himself as he ended the call, amused by Emily's embarrassed tone. It wasn't every day someone found themselves in such an absurd situation. And he appreciated the honesty and humility in her voice. He had no idea who she was. But there was something refreshing about her. He stepped away from the baggage claim area, suitcase in hand, and made his way to the cafe. As Emily dragged the unfamiliar suitcase back into the terminal, she was already dreading the awkward encounter that awaited her. Her mind raced, thinking about how the day had spiraled out of control. Why had she been so careless? But the thought of returning the suitcase and resolving the situation kept her moving forward. 10 minutes later, Emily entered the cafe. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as she glanced around nervously. Her eyes immediately spotted Ryan sitting in a quiet corner, casually scrolling through his phone. Even from across the room, she could sense the air of composure about him, his dark jeans and crisp button-down shirt creating a confident but laid-back appearance. She took a deep breath, walking toward him, trying to suppress the growing sense of awkwardness bubbling in her chest. Clearing her throat, she spoke softly. Hey, Ryan, right? Ryan looked up, his lips curving into an easy smile. Emily, you made it. He gestured to the seat across from him, and she placed the suitcase down between them, offering an apologetic smile. Yeah, sorry again for the whole luggage thing, she said, trying to keep her tone light. I swear, they look exactly the same. Ryan chuckled, leaning back in his chair. No harm done. Honestly, it was kind of refreshing. My life could use a little unexpected adventure. Emily raised an eyebrow. Right. Because getting stuck with my overstuffed suitcase full of budget souvenirs and worn-out sneakers is such an adventure. Ryan grinned. Hey, those souvenirs say a lot about a person. Emily rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling. Well, you're lucky I didn't take something valuable. Ryan smirked knowingly. Yeah, you probably would have been disappointed. Just boring business stuff in mine. She didn't notice how his eyes sparkled with amusement as he spoke. Too caught up in unzipping the suitcase to double-check its contents. When she opened it and saw the neatly packed clothes, the travel journal, and all her little trinkets from street markets, she sighed with relief. Everything was there. Thank God, she muttered. Ryan smiled as he watched her inspect the contents, the fondness evident in his gaze. Your travel journal looks interesting, he remarked casually. A lot of memories in there. Emily blushed. You peeked? Just enough to make sure it wasn't my stock reports, he teased, leaning forward slightly. She laughed, shaking her head. Yeah, it's full of little moments I don't want to forget. Traveling on a budget forces you to appreciate the small things. Ryan's expression softened. I like that. Most people just rush through life without noticing the details. Emily tilted her head. I guess I don't have the luxury to rush through things. Got to make every penny count. Ryan's gaze lingered on her, intrigued by her grounded perspective. What about you? He asked. What do you do exactly? Finance? Emily smiled faintly, not quite understanding the question. Yeah, finance. Something like that. Ryan shrugged, clearly uninterested in digging deeper. Well, work has its perks. But it's not always as glamorous as it seems. Emily studied him curiously. She had no idea who he really was. But there was something about the way he spoke that made her intrigued. Despite his suit, he wasn't giving off the usual, rich guy, vibes. She noticed the expensive suitcase. But it wasn't enough to change her perception. Must be nice, she thought to herself. A job where you don't have to think about pennies. The weeks that followed the suitcase mix-up were a blur of casual meetings, quiet coffees, and unexpected moments of connection. It seemed that every time Emily and Ryan ran into each other, it was either by chance or a simple invitation. Each encounter, though brief, brought them closer, and what started as an awkward mistake at the airport had blossomed into something deeper. Ryan had offered to help with her cafe dream almost immediately after their first meeting. It was an unexpected gesture, one that caught Emily off guard. She had laughed it off, assuming he was just being polite. But as the days passed, his offer lingered in her mind. It wasn't about the money, she knew that. He wasn't the type to throw his wealth around to impress people. No, it was something else, something more genuine. Ryan believed in her. He saw something in her that made him want to help, to invest in her dream. Emily, on the other hand, was hesitant. Her independent streak ran deep, and the idea of accepting help, especially from someone she had only just met, made her uncomfortable. She had worked too hard to get where she was. She had been through too much to feel like she was taking shortcuts. The thought of leaning on someone else for support, no matter how well-intentioned, didn't sit right with her. So, when Ryan's offer came up again during their third meeting at the cafe, Emily took a deep breath and decided to lay her cards on the table. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. "Ryan, I appreciate your offer," she began, her voice soft but firm. "I really do. But I can't accept it. I need to do this on my own." Ryan studied her for a moment, as if weighing her words carefully. He could see the determination in her eyes. She wasn't looking for a handout. And he respected that. "I get it," he said finally, his voice warm but understanding. "I'm not trying to take away your independence. I just want to be there for you if you ever change your mind. But I respect your decision." There was something about the way he said it, so matter-of-fact, yet gentle, that made Emily pause. He wasn't pushing her, wasn't trying to convince her to take his help. He simply accepted her for who she was. And that was rare, in a world where people were always trying to get something from others. Ryan's lack of expectation was almost disarming. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. She wasn't sure what was unfolding between them, but she knew that for the first time in a long time, she wasn't being judged. She wasn't being measured by her success or failure. She was simply Emily. Over the next few weeks, their conversations deepened. They began to talk about more than just her cafe or his business ventures. Ryan listened intently as Emily shared her hopes, her dreams, and her fears. She talked about growing up with limited resources, of the countless odd jobs she worked just to make ends meet, and how she had learned to rely on herself. There was no pretense in her words, just raw honesty. Ryan, in turn, opened up about his own life, though in a different way. He spoke of growing up in a world of privilege, of being groomed for success, but feeling lonely and disconnected from those around him. "Money doesn't solve everything," he confessed one evening as they sipped coffee in the cafe, his tone serious for the first time. "It buys comfort, but it doesn't buy real connection. I've always wondered if people care about me or just my bank account." Emily listened closely, her heart softening. She could see the vulnerability behind his composed exterior. "That sounds lonely," she said quietly, her voice filled with empathy. Ryan shrugged, but there was a faint sadness in his eyes. "It can be, but I don't want to live my life like that. I want to find someone who sees me for who I am, not just for what I have." Emily felt a pang of understanding. She had never been interested in wealth or status. For her, it was always about authenticity, about finding people who were real, who didn't wear masks. She hadn't expected to find that in Ryan. Not at first. But as they continued to talk, she realized that, in many ways, he was more like her than she had thought. That evening, as they parted ways, Emily found herself thinking about Ryan more than she had before. There was something about him, something genuine and kind, that made her want to know him better. She wasn't sure where it would lead, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to find out. Months passed, and life seemed to settle into a rhythm for Emily. She poured her heart and soul into her cafe dream, determined to build it from the ground up. She wasn't ready to let go of her independence, but she knew she needed a little help along the way. That's where Ryan came in. Although Emily had refused his offer to directly invest in the cafe, they remained close friends. Ryan kept his word. He didn't interfere in her decisions, but he was always there when she needed advice or a sounding board. Sometimes he would just pop in, sit in the corner of her cafe with a coffee in hand, and offer quiet encouragement, letting her know that he believed in her. For Emily, it wasn't just about creating a place to serve coffee. It was about building something meaningful, something that could offer people a sense of comfort and belonging. She'd grown up knowing the importance of connection, and she wanted her cafe to be a place where people could connect, share stories, and take a moment to breathe in the midst of their busy lives. One afternoon, just a few weeks before the grand opening, Emily found herself staring at the bare walls of the cafe, still in the process of being transformed into the cozy little haven she had envisioned. The space was quiet, save for the soft hum of construction and the occasional sound of furniture being moved into place. She had been working non-stop, and the exhaustion was starting to catch up with her. It was in that moment, when the weight of it all seemed too much to bear, that Ryan appeared at the door. He looked as calm and collected as always, but Emily could see the concern in his eyes. He had a knack for sensing when she was overwhelmed, even without her saying a word. "How's it going?" he asked, his voice gentle as he walked over to her. Emily sighed, running a hand through her hair. It's going. I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed. Honestly, there's still so much to do, and I'm not sure how I'm going to finish everything in time for the opening." Ryan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're doing great, Emily. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but everything's coming together. This place is going to be amazing, and you're going to be proud of it when it's done." She smiled at him, grateful for his presence. "Thank you," she said softly. "It means a lot that you're here." Ryan looked at her for a moment, his gaze deepening. "You know, you don't have to do this alone, Emily. You've got me. I'm always here if you need me." For the first time in a long while, Emily allowed herself to let down her guard. She had always prided herself on doing everything on her own. But in that moment, surrounded by the uncertainty of her dreams taking shape, she realized that maybe, just maybe, it was okay to lean on someone. As opening day drew closer, Emily's heart swelled with pride. The cafe was nearly finished. The rustic wooden tables were set up, each one adorned with small, thoughtful details, hand-picked flowers, flickering candles, and handwritten menus. The walls were lined with local art, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. On the morning of the grand opening, Emily's nerves were on edge. She had imagined this day for years, and now that it had finally arrived, she couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and fear. She had worked so hard to bring this dream to life. But was she ready? Just as she was starting to question herself, the bell above the cafe door jingled, and in walked Ryan, looking as effortlessly stylish as ever. Behind him were several people Emily didn't immediately recognize. But as they entered, she realized they were Ryan's friends and colleagues, people who had come to support her. Ryan caught her eye and smiled, his pride for her evident. "Surprise," he called out. Emily blinked, taken aback by the unexpected arrival. She hadn't expected Ryan to bring anyone, let alone make a spectacle of the day. "Ryan, you didn't have to," he interrupted her, his smile widening. "Of course I did. I couldn't miss your big day. Besides, I figured you'd want to show off a little." He gestured around the cafe with a sweeping motion. "This place looks incredible." Her heart fluttered at his words, and she felt a lump form in her throat. looking around at the crowd now enjoying their coffee. She was overwhelmed with emotion. This was it, the culmination of years of hard work. And it was everything she had imagined. She turned back to Ryan, her voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "I couldn't have done it without your support." Ryan reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I told you you could do this. And you did." As the day went on, Emily and Ryan shared quiet moments together, their bond growing stronger. In a place she had created with her own two hands, surrounded by people who believed in her, Emily realized something important. Love wasn't just about the grand gestures or the promises made. It was about the quiet moments of support, of standing beside someone and helping them grow, without ever overshadowing their dreams. Ryan had been there for her every step of the way, and though she had been hesitant to accept his help at first, she now understood that love and support didn't mean losing herself. It meant sharing her dreams, her fears, and her victories with someone who truly cared. As the cafe buzzed with life, Emily leaned back in her chair, a sense of peace settling over her. She was where she was supposed to be, with the person who had always believed in her, and with a future that, for the first time, felt truly within reach. As the weeks passed, Emily's cafe became a beloved local spot, and she found herself thriving in ways she had never expected. The joy of watching her vision come to life, knowing that people were finding comfort in her space, filled her heart with pride. But what truly made the cafe special was the way she had been able to share it with Ryan, who had supported her every step of the way, never trying to overshadow her, but always standing beside her. One evening, as they sat at a corner table, watching the soft glow of the cafe lights reflecting off the windows, Emily realized something important. Success wasn't just about achieving your dreams, it was about who you shared those dreams with. And in that moment, with Ryan by her side, she knew that she had found something even more valuable than the success of her cafe. Their journey together wasn't about grand gestures or promises, it was about quiet, meaningful moments and the belief that, together, they could overcome anything. Emily had found love in the most unexpected place. And with Ryan's unwavering support, she had learned that real love isn't about losing yourself. It's about trusting someone enough to share your dreams and allowing them to believe in you, too. As she looked around at the cafe she had worked so hard to create, Emily smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. With Ryan's support and her own determination, there was no limit to what they could achieve together. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed this heartwarming story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more life stories that will inspire, move, and touch your heart. See you in the next story.